Okay, the next item on the agenda is staff mileage, returning to meetings, council remuneration is number 1. Now, we've passed the bylaw with regards to increasing the council remuneration for this year, and this is whether or not we wanted to proceed to have Bruce Beakley, the Human Resources Director, to perform a council remuneration audit. I'll just bring the motion forward and then we can have a discussion if there's any movement on that. Moved by Councillor McLaughlin, seconded by Reeve Miller. Be it resolved that the Corporate Services Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region recommends that Council retain the services of Renfrew County Human Resources Director Bruce Beakley to perform a councillor remuneration audit using a public engagement model and provide recommendations for Council's consideration. This service will be at a cost of approximately $1,000. Any discussion? Reeve Miller.
Yeah, I missed the discussion at the last meeting. I think I stepped out for a few minutes. So I'd just like to hear it from the rest of council what the real reason we feel we need Bruce to do this for $1,000. I want you to sell me on it. Can you do that? Like if we're already at 2.5% and we're proving that, why are we looking further? I need to hear that in a certain way or have it explained to me properly.
Councillor Olmsted?
Sorry, you mentioned that there was a motion for a percentage. Was that the 2.5% that Reeve just...
We already passed a bylaw with regards to the increase for this year. This is a separate issue with regards to finding out where we sit on with regards to all the other municipalities. Is the remuneration appropriate? Is it not? What is the recommendation? And this would be a public engagement model where there would be people from the public reviewing it. The Renfrew County just went through this, and they had individuals from the public. One individual actually was from the Township of Whitewater Region, from La Paz, that sat on that committee as I was campaigning, and she expressed that. So it's whether or not we want to proceed with that or not. You can see that the township has, what ranking we are compared to the other townships, where we sit. All this information has been provided. It's just new for 2014, and whether or not council's in favor of doing it now or later, I think it's always important. I think it should be done, around the same time as employees get their review as well with regards to pay equity, and to put that in place would be nice to get it reviewed every 5 years or so. Councillor Olmsted.
Sorry, just to actually not in response to that, but just to comment that I personally feel that it's probably a bit early in the term of this council to proceed with looking at giving any sort of an increase beyond a nominal 2% or whatever we've already looked at. I'd like to propose that we maybe look at it after a full year of term for this current council.
Reeve Miller.
The last time we had one, I heard, was 8 years. Is that correct? And
I believe so.
I think I was told the result of that outside here one day. Can you tell us that? What the result of that was?
I have no idea. Councillor McLaughlin?
I think if you want the past history, I'm sorry. When I started first, we had a different policy than what we do now, and that was at that time is when we decided that we would hire the the help of Bruce Beakley to go over our enumeration. At the previous structure, there was an honorarium, and then you got paid for each committee meeting that you attended. Also, each council rep that sat on a board would be paid their council, or their nomination. At that time, it was $60 for a half-day meeting, $120 for a full-day meeting, and that's how it was done. Then what happened was we had councillors that were making $14,000. We had other councils that were making $7,000. At that time, you also got paid to go to the any conference that you attended. You would get your day's pay. So that was the reason. That's the past history of why we went to where we are now. The problem with now is we have councillors, and this is not picking on any councillor around this table, because I've said this many times, and I think Councillor Rager will back it, that we have councillors, some that used to sit, have 14 extra meetings to go to, some that had 12, and some that had none. That's why I don't think it's fair. If you're going to, and I can understand where Reeve Miller's coming from, and I have no problem with staying at the same honorarium. My problem is, if you're going to do that, then take your representation and every year rotate it around your council. So it would be fair at that time. If somebody was sitting on the library board, which is 12 meetings a year, other ones sit on the medical board, they're 4 to 6 meetings. I sit on the airport commission, which is 4 meetings. There's some that are sit on 2, 3 meetings, 2, 3 different boards, and there's other ones that are not sitting on any of them. And that's my reasoning, and it's not to pick on any particular councillor. It's to make a fair shake of the whole thing. There are also people that sit on a board, they get paid. Other ones, the rest, don't get paid. So I don't think it's fair. And that's my reasoning.
Reeve Miller?
I can appreciate that, Darrell, but I don't think I got an answer to my question. Mr. Beakley did this 8 years ago, and what was the result? Did he recommend a huge base increase on councillor salary, yes or no?
Councillor McLaughlin.
It wasn't a huge base increase.
Percentage?
No, because when you took your honorarium and you took your committee pay at that time, I think it ended up, and I think at that time, and I have to go back and you could look at, and maybe that would answer your question, look at each person's expenses at the end of the year, starting in 2006, where I said there were some that were getting $14,000, which councillors today do not get $14,000. So in retrospect, is that kind of answering the question? And maybe what you need to do, and we need to do, is go back and get the old expenses from the old councillors, which would show, like you would like a percentage, because I can't give you percentages. I know that I think at that time I was receiving, if I remember right, when all expenses were done, was around $9,000. Now it's about 13, but that's also 12 years. So that's $3,000 over 12 years. And I think if you look at the whole pie figure, and this came from Councillor Dick last year, said, I think that honorarium is 1.2% of the whole picture, like the whole pie. It's something like that. I can't remember. I'd have to go and look at it. But maybe that's where we should start. And that would answer your question as to how much the difference was. I can't give figures. I have certain figures I can remember. Those ones, I can't remember everybody's. I can remember mine, because
I understand that totally, Councillor McLaughlin, and I agree with Chris. It's too early for us to be doing this, and it's my understanding that we didn't take Mr. Beakley's recommendations 8 years ago. Now, I don't know this to be fact. It's what I've heard actually from people sitting at this table, or at this council.
They did, Reeve Miller, they did take those recommendations, and that's why the change in the pay has occurred, because he took into consideration, you know, all the committee meetings and everything, and went to a flat honorarium instead of paid by a committee meeting.
Okay.
May not have taken into the whole consideration the whole recommendation, which, but certainly parts. I think with Councillor McLaughlin's question with regards to going back in the previous, how it was done, I think Bruce Beakley has that information, and instead of having staff gather that information, my comment would be, when we get to that point, we hire Bruce Beakley, and he can put it all together and tie it all together and have a public engagement at that time. But I think, to be fair to every council moving forward, not just this council, but every council moving forward, that it be reviewed, and you know, we have the information from 2014. Do we wait a year? Do we not wait a year? Does it really matter if we wait a year or not? We don't have to implement anything until we decide to implement it, but it's just the actual study to have those figures ready and have the study completed. We could implement it in 2016, 17, 18, or 19. Doesn't really matter, but just to have the actual study done, it would be my recommendation, but and make things fair for everybody. Maybe it has to be more of a combination, that, you know, instead of just remuneration, that it be a stipend for committee meetings that are outside of sitting council, like the library board and that. Councillor Regier.
I would agree with you, Councillor Jackson. I do believe that you need an overall view from an outsider looking in. Bruce Beakley has the qualifications. He's dealt with this all the time. I don't think it's fair for anyone sitting around this table to decide how much money we should be making. I think it is, you know, get a public input, get the input from Mr. Beakley. And I agree, and I don't know why we would have to wait a year or 2 years. Let's just do it. Just proceed with it. We don't have to pass anything. We don't have to do anything. We don't even have to take anything. But there's been nothing done since 2008. That's 7 or 8 years ago. I think in keeping up with the times, for $1,000, I think it's $1,000 well spent. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Reeve Miller.
I want to wait a year is my suggestion, and agree with Chris. Let's figure out if we deserve it first.
This is just for the study. It's not for the actual results.
Why spend money on a study that we might not use? And we can get the study done when we decide it's the time to do it.
Councillor McLaughlin.
I can understand where Reeve Miller's coming from, but that's not my problem. That's not my thoughts at all. My thoughts are, let's share the load. Let's get this. If you want to leave the honorarium where it is, I have no problem. But there should not be councillors sitting with not sitting on any boards, other councillors sitting, or other members sitting on boards being paid. There's people out there that aren't even councillors that are sitting on a board that's getting paid. So if you're going to leave it where it is, and I don't have a problem with what Reeve Miller and Councillor Olmsted have said, but at the end of this year, let's take and move all the committees and put different people on the different committees.
Any further discussion? Will we vote on the motion today, or do you want to table it for a year? Councillor Olmsted.
Can we table it at least till the next committee meeting? And the reason I say that is, having heard Councillor Regier and Councillor McLaughlin speak, they are the two-term people that have been here, so perhaps it maybe has been unfair that they've been sitting for the past few councils and with no view to an increase or view to even a report that we're suggesting. So I'm kind of split on that, whether maybe it would be a good idea to do the report and sit on the report and think. if I'm a business owner, I wanna see how we perform before I give myself a raise, or any staff, so that's the direction I'm coming from, but maybe we do go ahead with the report.
I think what Bruce Beakley will perform is he'll take a look at all the committees and all the committees and outside committees that people sit on, and take a look at how many times people sit, and what will it take to make it fair, so that everybody is satisfied. Some people have time, some people don't have time. Some people sit on meetings every night a week, but may not necessarily sit on a meeting for council as a designated person. I don't know when I had a night off, but and it's not anything to do with this council, but it becomes rather difficult. So I mean, I'm all for fairness, and if it takes remuneration to make it fair, then I'm for that. I think Bruce Beakley, he would perform the audit using the public engagement. Once we got that information and the report back, and we can implement or not implement, it's only a recommendation. And I think at that point, to get the study over with, just to see where everybody stands and he can take a look at it, is the best way of going, and then we can move forward with it instead of waiting another year to even have just the study done. This is just a study. Doesn't mean we're going to get an increase. He could recommend no increase. He could recommend a large increase, you know, like it could be anything. But I think it's important to have that study done for not only this council but for future councils in the future, and then set up in a policy that, you know, it's reviewed every so many years, just like staff is reviewed every 5 years or whatever. Make that decision. Is it reviewed the first year of every new council? Is it reviewed the second year of every new council, so that it's done every 4 years? You know, those types of things. The thing that you struggle with as well, when you have these reports for 2014, there could very well be other councils doing the same type of review and say, wow, we're number 15 on the list, but we shouldn't be number 15 on the list. We should be, you know, at number 3 or 4, you know, for the size of the township and the number of hours that we put in. Whoever, you know, and they can go ahead and change it every year. Municipalities don't go every 4 or 5 years and say, we're going to review this, and everybody review it at the same time and have the same result. It's a moving target, these numbers. We do have fresh target numbers from 2014, and those can change at any time. Councillor Olmsted.
So I have a challenge for council then. So as we've looked at giving ourselves a 2.5% increase along with staff, is my recollection. I think that was 2.4. So if the report comes back that we're already being paid a fair amount, or I doubt a reduction would be in place, but if we're already being paid a fair amount, the $1,000 comes out of the 2.5% we're already giving ourselves. If it's already deemed, yes, it does make sense. So if Bruce Beakley comes back and he says that no, everybody's being paid a fair salary now, a fair stipend now, the $1,000 that we're putting towards the study comes out of the 2.5% collectively that we're giving ourselves. So.
If he comes back and says, well, sure, whatever, but...
So, 2.5% on $111,000, 2.4% on $111,000 is approximately $2,600 increase for the staff. So the $1,000 comes off the $2,600.
And reduces
the remuneration.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry.
Mayor Johnson.
I love a challenge. I'm going to back them.
Christine.
Just to play devil's advocate here, that is not the intention of the wording in the bylaw that states that the Township of Whitewater Region Council ensures proper maintenance of the council's remuneration. This speaks to cost of living by providing an annual increase to the base compensation using a 12-month consumer price index. So that is the intent of the legislation.
So So that's with regards to taking the $1,000 off. So we've already increased it with regards to that particular bylaw and that. So this would be an extra and above. I don't know.
So take $100 each off our check then at 1 month. So anyway, I think we can figure it out amongst ourselves. My goal here is not to burden the taxpayer anymore if we're already being compensated fairly.
Councillor Regier.
I don't know how we can say if we are compensated fairly if we're not, without anything that we've had in the last 8 years, no study, no nothing. How do we know we're being compensated fairly?
Just to restate the challenge is if the report comes back that we are being compensated fairly or maybe too much, that it comes out of our pockets, not the taxpayers. If it comes back that yes, an amendment needs to be made, an increase needs to be made, then fair enough. The $1,000 stands. It's $1,000, so.
I'm willing to take that challenge. Councillor Mackay.
It's about $145 a piece, isn't it?
Approximately.
I don't care.
So, with that intent and that challenge, Councillor McLaughlin.
Well, if we're going to take that challenge, I want to have a discussion over the people that are representing the different committees, because that's the part that's burning me, not the pay. I can go along with what Reeve Miller said. It's having to go to these extra meetings and sit around, do these meetings, and other people are doing whatever. The two things go hand in hand. I have no problems, and I have no problems on staying with the same pay as I'm getting. My biggest problem is to share the load.
Right. Now, if the share the load is a compensation model, is that satisfactory?
If you're going back to an old structure, is that what you're saying?
Half and half. Like, I don't know what he would recommend, but he would certainly, in his audit, would take into consideration the number of meetings that each, and perhaps we can instruct Christine to ensure that he does take all of those factors into consideration when he comes back with a recommendation. That whether or not, to include it in the remuneration, to top it off as committee meetings or whatever, but take a look at every committee and every outside committee councillors sit on and see if an additional remuneration is required to offset that. Christine first and then Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. And I think seeing as it is council's remuneration, it would be a good idea if you choose to go that route to get Bruce in here to hear it directly from council about what your expectations of the parameters of the study would be.
Could I suggest that you draft, perhaps you and I can sit down and maybe Councillor McLaughlin to ensure that the intent is there.
Sure.
And we can proceed with Bruce that way. I think to waste Bruce's time to come to a council meeting and to hear all of that, it would be just as simple to put it in a letter of hire for him to do this. Is that fair, Councillor McLaughlin?
That would be fair, and I would certainly, if that's the wishes of council, I would be willing to go ahead that way.
Okay. So we'll do that with that intent. Do you want me to read the motion again? Yes, no? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yep. Staff mileage report. I know I had questioned some mileage being taken from some staff members as I look at all the expenses that come our way, and I had questioned with regards to why staff was getting paid to come back to a meeting by choosing to go home first. There's been a couple of other questions as with regards to why staff are getting paid mileage for other things as well. I think, I didn't ask for it to be put on, the committee meeting. I had indicated that I would ask for it at a later date, and it's here now, so, Christine?
Yeah, I guess it had been my interpretation that a report was expected. So it speaks for itself. I have nothing to add to what's on this report. Some municipalities do it, some municipalities don't. It is in our bylaw. The mileage charges are very limited. It only applies that if you're returning to work outside of normal working hours. Most employees who are asked by me to attend the meeting, whether it be for training or to be here as an expert to answer questions regarding their reports, etc., choose to stay and just, we've always got work we can catch up on, and then bank their time at straight time, not at time and a half. So that has been the policy here, certainly since long before I arrived 2.5 years ago. My recommendation is status quo, but of course it's up to you.
And I can say after speaking with the former CAO, he is adamant that it was not the policy. I can also speak to other municipalities that I've worked at. Renfrew does not pay, Arnprior does not pay, Laurentian Valley does not pay. If there was a time that somebody was paid mileage and the former CAO signed off on it, he was not aware of it, and it got through under his nose. But he was adamant that, and I looked at the bylaw 1502771, I think I have a copy in my bag there, and it just says for meetings to attend, I mean, I can grab it, but it wasn't provided in the background, the actual wording with regards to mileage. You just reach down and pass me my blue bag. Mayor Johnson.
We have at least 2 half-tons that sit out in the yard here. As like Steve's, no? You take it now? Okay, and I'm just thinking if we have staff, extra staff that have to go home after work and come back, if there's one of our vehicles available, why don't we use our vehicle? It's just saying.
So mileage allowance, according to the bylaw, states, for the occasional use of vehicles authorized by the employee's supervisors, employees will receive 50 cents per kilometer. Christine.
Yeah, I'd also like to just point out that former CAO Dean Soriel did approve Erica Rice's mileage on a regular basis when she went home and returned to do minutes for evening meetings. So there was nothing slipped by anybody.
Well, he's quite adamant, and I spoke to him today, he's quite adamant that that never occurred.
Well, the paperwork is all in the file.
I'm sure he would like to see that. Councillor Olmsted.
Christine, so in your estimation now, with a lot of meetings starting, I think we've started at even 5 o'clock. So we've had 5, 5:30, 5:45, and 6 o'clock. Is there many of these staff members would be returning home and coming back? So for the new council, new processes, it may more or less be a moot point then, because our council meeting times have all changed from previous council, correct? So having said that, I think I would like to proceed with employees receiving mileage if they do have to return home. It sounds like it's going to be a very rare occasion to begin with, but if they do have to return home and come back, then I think we owe it to them to pay them. But again, my thought is that it's going to be a very, very rare occasion that's going to happen with this group.
And on the occasion where staff is driving past a meeting to attend work, before they attend work, would they receive mileage? They're driving past a destination and they're going to work after the meeting and they were paid mileage. Should they be paid mileage?
I honestly don't have an answer for that. I'd have to look at a specific situation and see what it was.
I can give you a specific situation tomorrow. Mayor Johnson.
If they're going for training, if they're going for functions that are representing the municipality, if they're driving, like if they're going past work, I presume it starts at work to the function.
No, their home's here, function's here, work is here. Anyways, I'll talk to
Okay,
Christine.
well, no, you just, if you're going to your function and then you're going
to
home
work.
again,
No,
on then to work? If it's in a straight line, that would be very difficult to make that call.
I would think not. I mean, no one expects to be claiming mileage to come and go to their place of work. The issue here is returning in after hours to the place of work because you are required to. That's how I would define it.
And that situation has only happened once, you know, and I questioned it. And I mean, I didn't ask for this report to be brought back. My email specifically said at some point I will be asking Christine. I was monitoring it to see what the mileage was, so I'm happy to continue as is. And I certainly didn't bring it forward. I was only asking a question, and I said if I would monitor and bring it forward at a later date if required. So this report certainly wasn't asked for, but I have been monitoring the expenses as the chair of finance has to sign off on them every week, every day, check emails, and sign off on all the expenses. So that was one of the ones that did tweak me as well as another one. So those types of situations occurred, and for whatever reason, it's on council's table today. Mayor Johnson.
In light of the fact that it's a very rare situation and probably has a very good reason, I'd be willing to follow suit with the status quo.
I think it will just be monitored, and if there's a situation that comes up in the future, then it will be questioned again. Okay, so we can go on to number 3, staff conference policy. Has everybody had a chance to review this policy? I know it was brought forward at one other time, and the policy was fine, other than the application to attend a conference and to have the department head and the CAO sign off on that. Has there been any change to the policy since it was presented the last time? I see some highlighted items.
Yeah, the highlighted items were added just to make sure that, as indicated, it would be required for a potential attendee, whether it be a conference, a convention, a seminar, a workshop, or a business meeting, to make their argument about why the particular training or conference would be beneficial to their employment. And there's, in the application, there's a section, why do you feel this training is relevant to your position at the Township of Whitewater Region? So that had been missing previously.
I know when I originally brought this up, there was a comment made that perhaps it is a benefit to go to conferences, you know, as a bonus situation. I don't believe in a municipality that we're up for bonuses to go to a conference. A conference or a training seminar is paid to increase the knowledge of the staff for themselves as well as for the municipality. And if they are going to a conference or a training session, they are expected to attend the conference and training session and gather as much information as they can. And so I have a motion. Is there any other further discussion? Moved by Councillor Rigger, seconded by Councillor Mackay. Be it resolved that the Corporate Services Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region recommends that Council adopt the staff training and development policy as part of the Human Resources Policy. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Christine, for bringing this. The next one is for honoring longtime staff, a wall display in the lobby, guidelines, and for qualification. Christine.
I'd like to turn this over to the Mayor.
The Mayor's the one that brought this up, and I was looking at the pictures on the wall, on that wall, and that's a very small part of the support group that look after this township. And I feel that we could honor our staff in general. More so it is done, I think, in tradition as they retire. There has to be a criteria for that action. Naturally, but what comes to my mind very generously is Fraser Barr. Fraser Barr was a long-time employee that passed away while I was working for the township, and he was very important to the township. Another one was a long-term employee, Raymond Sparling. He maybe is the longest consecutive years running with any municipality in all of Ontario. And we have many others. We have, with the 4 municipalities and over the years, we should not, in my opinion, take any of this lightly or for granted. And we should honor them, I feel. And we have a wall, we have many walls that could display the pictures and a little bio of each employee. And a thank you, basically, to our longtime staff is what I was kind of looking for.
I guess my question to you, Mayor Johnson, is does it go back to the former townships? Does it go to employees that served 20 years and then moved on to another municipality or another type of job? Does it represent that they, is it just for Whitewater Region as it is now new? Or does it combine the years of service for all 4 of the ones, and how far back do we go, and who's going to gather that information? Mayor Johnson.
We ask for people to volunteer the information, and I think it's part of the history of the area, so I would suggest that it would go back to all 4 municipalities, to whatever we can find for pictures in a section, and then a different section for people who have retired from Whitewater Region and moving forward. But technically, history of the 4 municipalities is Whitewater Region.
Yes. Councillor McLaughlin.
Do you include your volunteer firefighters as employees? That's what I'm wondering. And I also have to agree with what the chair is saying. Personally, my thoughts are that if you're going to start it, find a starting point and go from there. And amalgamation is about where I think it should be started. The other employees that work for the other townships, it would have been their responsibility to honor their employees.
So you're thinking, Councillor McLaughlin, that anybody who transferred into Whitewater Region would be entitled, but the ones that prior to amalgamation that may have worked in the 1990s or 80s wouldn't necessarily be qualify for the Wall of Fame, as they say.
I guess where I'm coming from is I feel you need to get a starting point, and I mean, amalgamation seems to me is a good spot for the starting point. You can go back and you're obviously going to miss people.
Right.
And this way we have control of the people because we have the data.
Right.
And that's my reasoning. I certainly honor the old employees out of Ross Township. Were the ones that I would know, but as far as the other employees, I wouldn't. So
right.
that's where my reasoning comes from. You need to find a starting point.
So as long as, I guess the question is, as long as they've come into Whitewater Region working, their years of service prior to that would count. But if they never worked for Whitewater Region as a whole, you're saying that their service would not qualify for this?
I guess what I'm saying is it would have been employees of Whitewater Region. Would that clarify?
So if they started since 2001, those years of service?
No. As employees came into it of amalgamation.
Right.
I'm thinking people like Fraser Barr, who was, but he was an employee of Whitewater Region.
Yes.
That's what I'm...
So count his years of service prior to that as well?
Certainly.
Yes. Mayor Johnson.
What I'm looking at is honoring our history, and our history goes back a long piece. There will be an automatic stop point where we won't get any information, but we do have pictures of the former everybody available to us, I believe. The former Cobden, former Beechburg, former Ross, former Westmeath.
Of staff?
Of staff.
I wouldn't think so, but...
Well, I know on my office in Westmeath, there was a picture of all of the staff from that entity.
In Westmeath?
From Westmeath, yeah.
Yeah, not Ross, didn't take pictures. I don't think Cobden took pictures. Councillor Olmsted, and then Councillor McLaughlin.
I think I'd like more time to think about it before proceeding with any kind of a motion, but I think I would like to maybe, rather than putting up pictures of people, because we're going to need at some point we'll need a bigger office. So I think we'd like to honor them with a gift, but I think it's a good idea to put a photo of people maybe that have made a significant contribution to Whitewater Region, and similar to what we did for Mr. Rathwell earlier in the year, was that there was a little bit of a bio done up on him, and he had 40 years of public service and that kind of thing. And I think maybe to honor people like that, but I'd like more time to get my head wrapped around just putting pictures of people that have 20 years, 30 years, 40 years up. I think we need to recognize them, but I don't know if we necessarily need to put photos of them up on the wall.
More of a name plaque sort of thing.
Yeah. And maybe it's a gift of a nominal gift of something from the township.
I don't think that's Mayor Johnson's intent. I don't know if there is a policy in place to recognize, 5, 10, 15, 20 years of service currently. Nothing that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, but we'd have to look into that.
Yeah. Councillor McLaughlin.
If my memory serves me right, and this may go back before even Councillor Rager was here, at one time I know one of the employees who had 35 years was recognized, and I thought we had put a policy into place at that time. We talked about it, I know that, and I thought it was implemented, but it never went any further than that. So maybe that needs to be looked at as well. And I know there was milestones, like I don't remember whether it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but I remember the discussion. So where it went from, I can't say.
So perhaps to move this along, perhaps the mayor, myself as chair, and Christine can kind of sit down together and brainstorm with regards to coming up with ideas, and perhaps, Christine, you can check into whether or not there is a policy recognizing current employees for their milestones, and we can move that forward. How's that, Mayor Johnson?
My intention is to recognize employees, regardless of milestone or otherwise, to a point, and you can put probably 1,000 pictures on that wall. They're not plaques like those.
No.
They're just small photographs and like an album of history.
That's something that the three of us perhaps can sit down and make a suggestion and come forward, rather than discuss it at this time.
No, that's fine. That's
suitable to council? Councilor McLaughlin?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Just move it ahead. You've got a committee set, and you people discuss it, and then bring it back and with your recommendations.
Perfect. We'll do that. So I didn't read that, eh? So that motion then will be tabled. Is that okay by the mover, Dave Mackay, and seconder, Councilor Rikier? Okay, next one on the list. Christmas holiday administrative staffing. Christine.
Yeah, again, I think the report is pretty explanatory. It has been past practice in this municipality to close the office on Thursday, December 24th, on Christmas Eve, and on New Year's Eve for half a day. But because this year, the 26th, Boxing Day, this always gets a bit confusing, which is a stat. Anyway, this is my recommendation. It would give staff 2 4-day weekends and still offer Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of both weeks for business conducted in the office, and allowing staff some time with their families.
In the employment bylaw 2015-02771 for paid holidays, it says 13 paid holidays shall be provided. Specific days are outlined in the Human Resources Policy and Procedures Manual. Do we have a copy of that on the table at all?
No, we don't, but those days are, as noted, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and New Year's Day.
And what are the other days? Just so that everybody, if you could bring that.
Easter, Family Day, I can grab it.
Yeah, if we could have that. I mean, it would be nice for a lot of other municipalities. It just seems that this Christmas holiday situation always comes back each year to the table, it seems. I've noticed in previous years that it comes back to the table and different discussions occur. Sometimes the whole week is given off. And I think it needs to be consistent. So December 26th is a stat holiday, and if it falls on the weekend, it normally falls on the Monday following that weekend. If we put in directly into the policy that they get the half day at Boxing Day and the half day New Year's Eve, that's typical of most municipalities. My concern is also, well, never mind, I won't say my concern because it doesn't apply, because they fall under a union agreement, so it's not the same situation, and that is a negotiating factor, so that was my thought process going. But if it was outlined clearly so that it doesn't come up each year for a decision to be made. Councillor McLaughlin.
Well, I can agree with what you're saying, but when I look at this, it looks like it's a win for the public because it's going to be open another day rather than 2 half days. Because if we were going to do it and under any other structure, it would have been close at noon on Thursday, Friday, Monday, close at noon the following Thursday, and close then the Friday. This way, you're closing all day Thursday, all day Friday, but you're open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Is that not correct in my thinking?
Yes, you're correct in your thinking, but, you will note...
The policy and procedures, that's fine. I don't care. I just want to see, I think it's a benefit to the public more than to the employees.
Just for everyone's information as well, so the bank will be closed on the Monday. The post office will be closed on the Monday because they will take the stat holiday on the Monday following the weekend, typically. So there is, it's the way that most businesses follow practice. Certainly the way most municipalities, there will not be another municipality that I'm aware of unless they come up with this as well that would be open on the Monday. But I think some of those questions need to be answered for me. And again, this year it might work, next year it might not work. And last year I believe it was closed for the whole week between Christmas and New Year's. Is that correct or incorrect? Christine?
Yeah.
I've asked Christine, I see you waving, I don't want to break your arm, so I'll get back to you after I talk to Christine.
I believe that was correct, Chair, and the confounding thing about the Christmas holiday period is that leap years also figure into it, and because of the rolling rotation of Christmas and the stat holidays, is that it always seems to have a slightly different configuration of what might make sense. To me, this made sense.
Councillor McLaughlin.
I beg to differ with you people because it was not closed last year. It was 2 years ago it was closed for the whole year, and I did not agree with that. Last year we were closed the half a day before Christmas, Christmas Day, New Year, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and half a day before New Year's and New Year's Day. I'm pretty sure you can check the records, but it was 2 years ago that it was closed, and last year, after all the public input, it was changed back to that procedure.
I would just like to see it standard for every year, exactly what people are entitled to take off. Then they can adjust their holidays, they can, whatever, you can adjust the staffing requirements during that time. But to come and every year a full-blown discussion on what is and what isn't, at this time I'd like to ask Christine to find out from the bank and from the post office whether or not you can utilize those services during the Monday of following Boxing Day. And then council can make more of an informed decision. I certainly, I understand that it's the same time frame. It's an half an hour Boxing Day and a half an hour, or half a day Boxing Day and a half a day New Year's Eve that you're offsetting of Boxing Day. But I just want to ensure that the other businesses are open for business that we rely on, which is the post office and the bank. Councillor Olmsted.
I'm prepared to accept this the way it is. It just, looking through my calendar, it makes perfect sense that you've got 3 two-day weeks, and you've got 2 4-day weekends. So, just to look on the calendar, it makes perfect sense. And I don't think there'd be any benefit to looking at opening or closing on the Monday after. It makes clear logical sense when you look at the calendar, which is what I just did.
I agree, and this year, what I'm saying is this year it works, but next year it might not work. And, it'd be just nice to have a consistency so that it doesn't come up every year. Either that or we're forced to have a discussion every year. I don't care one way or the other. I'd like to know, on the Monday, are they going to be able to deposit? Even if are they going to get any mail? Those types of things. Mayor Johnson.
If Christmas and Boxing Day both fall on the weekend, either a Friday and a Monday or a Monday and a Tuesday are eligible.
Monday and Tuesday.
And if Boxing Day is on Monday, it's counted as the day. If Christmas is on Sunday, you get Tuesday. Why don't we just go with that? That's kind of the standard procedure throughout all the industry.
The issue is whether or not the half a day for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Typically, the office is closed at noon. Most municipal offices are closed at noon on those 2 days.
Perfect.
And so the half day, the 2 half days are being offset by Boxing Day.
Right. So
It's the same,
yeah,
you know, I
let's do
agree,
it.
but I'd like to see it. I mean, maybe this year it's fine, and maybe next year when we have the discussion, it won't work out and we'll be better off looking at it, because Christmas Day will probably fall on a Saturday and a Sunday, you know, Monday, Tuesday, you're gonna,
yeah, but it's the half a day ends up being an extra half a day.
yes.
Yes.
It's the same time period, it's just
If we're-
whether or not,
Yeah, if we're concerned about the office not being open for the half a day, let's make a policy that one person has to stay and man the phones.
not just one person, you'd have to
Well,
have at
two.
least 2.
Then let's not do it. Let's do, everybody goes at noon.
Exactly.
I'm all
Okay,
for that.
so I mean, I can bring this motion forward and we can go with it as is, either or. Councillor McLaughlin.
I think bring it forward. Let's vote on it and see where it's at, and let's carry on.
Sounds good. Okay. Moved by Councillor Rieger, second by Councillor Olmsted. Be it resolved that the Corporate Services Committee of the Township of Whitewater Region recommends that council approve that the municipal office will be closed this year over the Christmas holidays on Thursday, December 24th and Friday, December 25th, Thursday, December 31st, and Friday, January 1st, 2015 and 16. So, the Friday, January 1st, 2016. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Next item on the list, summer meeting schedule, and I think we're getting to that time that we may need a motion. Do I have a mover and seconder to extend it past 9 p.m.?